Welcome to Love Beyond Shade. In this video, we're talking about a shocking story titled, Husband Texted, Stuck at Mom's for Dinner, Love You. But I was sitting 3 tables away. Before we continue, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any emotional stories like this one. Now, let's continue. The notification lit up my phone screen just as I was taking a sip of my Chardonnay. The ambient noise of the restaurant, clinking glasses, murmured conversations, the occasional burst of laughter, faded into background static as I read the message from my husband. Marcus, stuck at Mom's for dinner. She insisted. You know how she gets. Love you. Don't wait up. XO. I stared at the words, my wine glass suspended halfway between the table and my lips. Then, slowly, I set it down and looked up. 3 tables away, partially obscured by a decorative partition of frosted glass and trailing pothose plants, sat my husband of 8 years. Marcus Chen, in his perfectly pressed navy blazer and the tie I'd given him for his last birthday, was very much not at his mother's house in Pasadena. He was right here at Bella Notte, one of the most romantic restaurants in downtown Los Angeles, and he wasn't alone. The woman sitting across from him was stunning. Even from this distance, I could see that much. She had the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genes and probably a very expensive skincare routine. Smooth dark skin that seemed to glow in the restaurant's soft lighting, natural hair styled in an elegant twist, and a smile that could probably charm anyone within a 10-foot radius. She was laughing at something Marcus had just said, her hand reaching across the table to touch his arm in a gesture that spoke of intimacy and familiarity. Marcus was leaning forward, completely engaged, wearing an expression I hadn't seen on his face in months. Maybe longer. My best friend Elena noticed my sudden stillness. Jessica. Hello. She waved her hand in front of my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. What's wrong? I couldn't speak. I couldn't even form words. I just turned my phone toward her, showing her Marcus's text, and then nodded subtly in the direction of his table. Elena's eyes widened. She leaned back slightly in her chair to get a better view, then quickly sat up straight again. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, Jess. Is that? Yes, I managed to croak out. That's my husband. And he just texted you that he's at his mother's house? Apparently. Elena grabbed my hand across the table, her grip almost painful in its intensity. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? March over there and cause a scene? Confront him right here, right now, in front of everyone? Take a photo as evidence? Leave quietly and pretend I'd never seen anything? My mind was racing, but my body felt frozen. The logical part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through law school and made me a successful corporate attorney, was cataloging facts, looking for alternative explanations, building and demolishing arguments at lightning speed. Maybe it was a work dinner. Marcus was a senior architect at one of the city's most prestigious firms. He had dinner meetings all the time. But he'd never lied about them before. And this didn't look like any work dinner I'd ever seen. Maybe she was a client. A very important client who needed special attention. But Marcus had dozens of clients, and he'd never felt the need to hide those meetings from me either. Maybe there was a perfectly innocent explanation. But the way she was looking at him, the way he was looking at her, there was nothing innocent about it. Jess, Elena said urgently, squeezing my hand again. Jessica, talk to me. What do you want to do? I pulled my gaze away from Marcus's table and looked at my best friend. Elena Rodriguez had been there for every major moment of my adult life. She'd helped me study for the bar exam. She'd been my maid of honor at my wedding. She'd held my hand through 2 miscarriages and never once told me to give up hope, even when I'd wanted to. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was Elena. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't think. I can't. Elena, what is happening? I don't know, honey. But we need to figure out what you want to do right now, because, she glanced over at Marcus's table again and her expression shifted. Because they just ordered champagne. Champagne. Marcus and his mystery woman were celebrating something. That detail, more than anything else, snapped me out of my paralysis. A cold, clear anger began to crystallize in my chest, replacing the shock and confusion. It spread through my veins like ice water, sharpening my thoughts and steadying my hands. "I'm going to watch," I said quietly. "I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to watch, and I'm going to see exactly what my husband thinks he's getting away with." Elena nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay, I'm with you. Whatever you need." The waiter appeared at our table with impeccable timing. "Ladies, have you decided on your entrees?" I hadn't even looked at the menu since Marcus's text had arrived. Elena, bless her, took charge. "We'll both have the Branzino, please. And another bottle of the Chardonnay." "Excellent choice," the waiter said, collecting our menus. "I'll have that right out for you." As he walked away, I adjusted my position slightly so I had a clearer view of Marcus's table. The frosted glass partition that separated us was doing its job, providing a sense of privacy without completely blocking the view. From where I sat, I could see them clearly, but they would have to be looking directly at me to notice my presence, and they were far too absorbed in each other for that. The champagne arrived at their table, Veuve Clicquot, I noted, Marcus's go-to for special occasions. The same champagne we'd had at our wedding. The sommelier made a show of opening it, poured 2 glasses, and departed with a small bow. Marcus raised his glass, and the woman raised hers. They were toasting something. Their glasses clinked together in the universal gesture of celebration, and they both drank, their eyes locked on each other over the rims of their flutes. Then Marcus reached into his jacket pocket. My breath caught in my throat. For one terrible, sickening moment, I thought he was going to pull out a ring. But instead, he withdrew a small, wrapped box, the kind that jewelry came in, but not ring-sized. More like a bracelet or necklace. The woman's face lit up with delight. She took the box, unwrapped it with careful fingers, and opened it. Even from 3 tables away, I could see her expression of genuine joy. She pulled out what looked like a delicate gold necklace, held it up to the light, and then said something to Marcus that made him smile, that real, genuine smile that I'd fallen in love with when we first met at a friend's barbecue 9 years ago. She stood up, walked around to his side of the table, and turned her back to him so he could fasten the necklace. Marcus's fingers worked the clasp, and when she turned back around, she leaned down and kissed him. Not a friendly peck on the cheek. Not an ambiguous brush of lips that could be explained away. A real kiss, full of passion and promise and intimacy. Elena gasped softly beside me. "Jess." "I see it," I said, my voice eerily calm. The ice in my chest had spread everywhere now. I felt cold and clear and frighteningly composed. "I see everything." The woman sat back down, touching the necklace and beaming at Marcus. Their entrees arrived, and they began to eat, but the meal was clearly secondary to their conversation. They were lost in each other, creating their own little bubble of happiness in the middle of this crowded restaurant. A bubble that existed completely separate from the life Marcus was supposed to be living with me. Our food arrived, and I mechanically began to eat, though I couldn't have said what it tasted like. Elena kept shooting worried glances at me, clearly expecting me to break down or explode or do something, but I just continued watching my husband wine and dine another woman while I sat 3 tables away, invisible and forgotten. "You're scaring me," Elena finally said. "This is too calm. You should be yelling or crying or throwing things. This is weird, Jess." "I'm thinking," I replied. "About what?" "About everything." And I was. As I watched Marcus with this woman, I was thinking about the past 8 years of our marriage. I was thinking about how we'd grown apart so gradually that I hadn't even noticed it happening. I was thinking about how our conversations had become increasingly superficial, limited to logistics about bills and schedules and whose turn it was to take out the trash. I was thinking about how we hadn't had sex in 3 months, maybe longer, and how neither of us seemed particularly bothered by that fact. I was thinking about how I'd convinced myself that this was just what marriage became after a while. That the passion faded and was replaced by comfortable companionship. That we were fine, just in a rut, nothing that couldn't be fixed with a vacation or a date night or a renewed commitment to working on things. But watching Marcus now, seeing the life and energy and genuine happiness in his face as he talked to this woman, I realized something that made my stomach churn. We weren't in a rut. A rut implied that we'd been going somewhere and gotten stuck. The truth was worse. We'd stopped moving entirely, and I'd been the only one who didn't know we were already dead in the water. How long do you think this has been going on? Elena asked quietly. It was a good question. The kind of easy intimacy I was witnessing didn't develop overnight. This wasn't a first date or even a second or third. This was established, settled, comfortable. They had inside jokes. They had a rhythm. They had history. Months, I said. At least. Maybe longer. I thought about all the late nights Marcus had claimed to be working. All the weekend site visits that seemed to multiply over the past 6 months. The business trips that got extended at the last minute. His new habit of taking his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. The way he'd started working out regularly and updating his wardrobe. The subtle distance that had crept into our interactions. I'd noticed all of it, but I'd explained it away. He was stressed about work. He was going through a midlife thing. He was trying to get healthier. I'd given him the benefit of the doubt at every turn because that's what you did when you loved someone, right? You trusted them. You believed the best of them. What a fool I'd been. Jess, we should go, Elena said. This is torture. Let's just leave, and you can confront him at home. No, I said firmly. I need to see how this ends. How what ends? You already know he's cheating. You don't need to watch the whole thing. Yes, I said, still watching Marcus laugh at something his companion had said. I do. I couldn't have explained why it felt so important to stay, to bear witness to the entire evening. Maybe I needed to let the reality of it sink in completely. Maybe I needed to make sure there was no room for doubt or denial or talking myself into believing anything other than the stark truth in front of me. Maybe I was a masochist. Or maybe I just needed to know exactly who my husband had become when he thought I wasn't watching. The evening wore on. Marcus and his woman finished their entrees and ordered dessert, tiramisu to share, which they fed to each other with playful intimacy that made my stomach turn. They ordered coffee. They talked and laughed and existed in their perfect little world while I sat 3 tables away, a ghost at my own funeral. Elena had given up trying to convince me to leave. She just sat with me, occasionally touching my hand or refilling my wine glass, being the kind of quiet, solid presence that only a true friend could be in a moment like this. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 90 minutes, Marcus signaled for the check. He paid, with a credit card that was linked to our joint bank account, I noted with bitter irony, and then stood up, helping the woman with her coat. They're leaving, Elena whispered urgently. Jess, we need to. I know, I said, grabbing my purse. Come on. What? Where are we going? Following them. Jessica, that's... I don't care, I interrupted. I need to know where this goes. I need to know everything. We threw cash on the table, probably way too much, but I wasn't thinking about that, and hurried toward the exit, staying far enough behind Marcus and his woman to avoid detection but close enough to keep them in sight. They stepped out into the cool Los Angeles evening, and Marcus's hand immediately went to the small of the woman's back. It was such a casual, possessive gesture, the kind of unconscious touch that spoke of genuine intimacy. He used to touch me like that, I thought. Back when we first got married, his hand was always finding the small of my back, guiding me through crowds, keeping me close. When had he stopped? We followed them down the street, Elena and I, staying in the shadows and trying to look casual. Ahead of us, Marcus and the woman stopped at the valet station. Of course Marcus had used the valet. He always did when he wanted to impress someone. What if they see us? Elena hissed. They won't, I said with more confidence than I felt. They're not looking for us. And they weren't. They were too busy being wrapped up in each other. As they waited for their car singular, I noted, they'd come together. Marcus pulled the woman close and kissed her again, right there under the streetlights, not caring who might see. The valet brought around Marcus's car, his BMW, the one he supposedly drove to work every day and nowhere else. The woman got in the passenger seat, and Marcus tipped the valet before sliding into the driver's seat. Jess, my car's in the parking structure, Elena said. We can't. Use the app, I said, already pulling out my phone. Get an Uber. Black car, something that can follow them without being obvious. You're serious about this? Deadly serious. Elena looked at me for a long moment, and whatever she saw in my face convinced her not to argue. She pulled out her own phone and started tapping. "There's one 3 minutes away." We waited, watching Marcus's taillights disappear down the street. I memorized the direction he went, east on 7th Street, and prayed we'd be able to find him again. The Uber arrived exactly 3 minutes later, a black sedan with a driver who looked like he'd seen everything and wasn't about to be surprised by 2 women asking him to follow another car. "There's a BMW," I said as we climbed in, pointing in the direction Marcus had gone. "Dark blue. We need to follow it. I'll pay whatever it takes." The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Lady, I don't want to be involved in anything illegal." "It's not illegal," I assured him. "That's my husband's car. I just want to see where he's going." Understanding dawned in the driver's eyes. "Ah," he said. "Say no more. I got a cousin who went through something similar. I'll get you there." He pulled out into traffic with professional efficiency, and miraculously, we spotted Marcus's BMW about a block ahead. The driver kept a careful distance, never getting too close but never losing sight of our target. Marcus drove west, away from downtown, toward the more residential areas of the city. My mind was racing, trying to figure out where he might be going. A hotel? That seemed most likely. Or maybe they had some kind of secret apartment, a love nest that he'd been financing with money from our joint accounts. But as we continued to follow, I realized we were heading into a neighborhood I recognized. West Adams. A historic area with beautiful old homes that had been gentrified over the past decade. Real estate here was expensive, not as expensive as some parts of LA, but definitely not cheap. Marcus turned onto a tree-lined residential street, and our driver slowed down, hanging back. We watched as Marcus pulled into the driveway of a charming craftsman bungalow, one of those perfectly restored homes with a welcoming front porch and landscaped yard. He parked, got out, walked around to open the passenger door for the woman, and then, still holding her hand, walked up to the front door. He pulled out a set of keys, unlocked the door, and they both went inside. A few moments later, lights turned on in what looked like the living room, and then, a few seconds after that, the upstairs. "Want me to wait?" the driver asked. "Yes," I said. "Please." Elena and I sat in silence, staring at the house. My house, I realized with a sick feeling. Or rather, a house that my husband apparently had access to. A house where he clearly spent time. A house that represented an entire life I knew nothing about. "Maybe it's her place," Elena suggested weakly. "Maybe he's just visiting. With his own keys." I countered. "Keys he pulled out of his pocket like he uses them all the time?" Elena had no response to that. We sat there for 20 minutes, watching the lights in the house, seeing occasional shadows move past the windows. I imagined what was happening inside. Were they watching TV? Talking? Having sex in what might be their shared bed? The thought made me want to vomit. "Jess, we should go," Elena finally said. "You know where the house is now. You can come back tomorrow when you're thinking more clearly, figure out your next move." She was right. Sitting here in a stranger's car, staring at a house where my husband was doing God knows what, wasn't accomplishing anything except making me feel progressively more insane. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." I gave the driver my address and leaned back in the seat, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been fueling me all evening was draining away, leaving me feeling hollow and shaky. Elena held my hand the whole drive home, not saying anything, just being there. When we pulled up to my house, the house I shared with Marcus, the house that was supposed to be our home, she paid the driver and insisted on coming inside with me. "I'm not leaving you alone tonight," she said firmly. "Absolutely not." I didn't argue. The truth was, I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to be in this big, empty house with nothing but my thoughts and the ghost of my marriage. We went inside, and Elena immediately went to the kitchen to make tea while I collapsed onto the couch in the living room. Our living room, with its carefully chosen furniture and the framed photos of our wedding and various vacations on the walls. Our life, documented and displayed, looking so normal and happy. What a lie it all was. Elena returned with 2 mugs of chamomile tea and sat down next to me. "Drink," she ordered, pressing a mug into my hands. I obeyed automatically, the warmth of the ceramic grounding me slightly. "Talk to me," Elena said. "Tell me what you're thinking." What was I thinking? I was thinking about the past 8 years and wondering how much of it had been real. I was thinking about that woman in the restaurant and the house in West Adams and the necklace Marcus had given her. I was thinking about all the times I'd believed his lies and wondering if I was the stupidest person alive. I need to know everything, I finally said. I need to know how long this has been going on, who she is, how serious it is. I need facts. How are you going to get them? Elena asked. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I will. I'm a lawyer, Elena. Research and investigation are literally what I do for a living. I can figure this out. And then what? What are you going to do with the information? That was the real question, wasn't it? What came after? Confrontation? Divorce? Trying to work it out? I don't know that either, I said. But I can't make any decisions until I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Elena nodded slowly. Okay, I get that. So what's the plan? Private investigator. Maybe, I said. But first, I'm going to do some digging on my own. I have access to our bank accounts, our credit cards. I can see where he's been spending money, look for patterns. And I can. I trailed off, realizing what I was about to say. You can what? Elena prompted. I can track his phone, I said quietly. We have that family tracking app. We set it up a couple years ago when I was working late a lot, and he wanted to make sure I got home safely. It works both ways. Jesus, Elena breathed. It's a little invasive, but given the circumstances. Given the circumstances, I echoed. I think I'm entitled to a little invasion of his privacy. He certainly hasn't been respecting mine, or our marriage vows. I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app. Sure enough, there was Marcus's location, a little blued on a map, stationary at the address in West Adams. Right where I'd just watched him disappear into that house with another woman. He's still there, I said, showing Elena the screen. She looked at it and shook her head. I can't believe this is happening. Marcus always seemed so steady, reliable. I never would have guessed. Neither would I said. That's the thing, isn't it? You think you know someone. You build a life with them. And then one day you find out you didn't know them at all. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our tea. Then Elena asked, When did you start to suspect something? I didn't, I admitted. Not really. Things have been different between us lately, but I just thought. I don't know what I thought. That we were going through a phase. That work was stressing him out. That we'd gotten too comfortable and needed to try harder. When was the last time things felt really good between you two? I had to think about that. When had we last had a genuinely great day together? When had we last laughed until our sides hurt or stayed up all night talking or made love like we couldn't get enough of each other? Our anniversary, I finally said. Last March. We went to that bed and breakfast in Santa Barbara. It was nice. Really nice. We actually talked, Connected. I remember thinking that maybe we'd turned a corner, that we were going to be okay. And after that, he got busy with that big commercial project downtown. The mixed-use development with the hotel and condos. He was working crazy hours, lots of late nights and weekend meetings. And I was swamped too. We were in the middle of that merger for the Hendricks account. We were like ships passing in the night. Ships passing in the night, Elena repeated. That's when it probably started. When you were both too busy to notice what the other was doing. She was probably right. People always talked about how affairs happened in moments of crisis or when couples were fighting, but the truth was that affairs often happened when things were just boring, routine, when the relationship had become more about coexistence than connection, when there was enough distance for someone else to slip into the gap. What time does Marcus usually get home when he says he's working late? Elena asked. 10, 11, I said. Sometimes midnight if it's a really big deadline. We both looked at the clock. It was 9:47 p.m. So he's probably going to be at his mother's for another couple hours at least, Elena said. Which gives you time to look around. Look around. For evidence, Elena clarified. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts. His computer, his papers, anything that might tell you more about what's been going on. I hesitated. Going through Marcus's things felt like a violation, like I was sinking to his level. But then again, he'd violated our marriage vows. He'd lied to me repeatedly. He'd created an entire secret life. Did I really owe him the courtesy of respecting his privacy? Do it, Elena urged, reading my expression. Jess, you need to know what you're dealing with. Trust me, you don't want to confront him without all the facts. He'll just gaslight you, tell you you're imagining things, make you doubt what you saw. She was right. I knew she was right. If I confronted Marcus right now with only what I'd witnessed tonight, he could come up with a dozen explanations. She's a client. It's not what it looked like. You're being paranoid. You're overreacting. But if I had concrete evidence, financial records, communications, a clear pattern of behavior, he couldn't deny it. He couldn't twist it into something else. He couldn't make me feel crazy for knowing the truth. Okay, I said, standing up. Let's do it. Marcus's home office was on the second floor, a converted bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a big oak desk that had belonged to his father. He spent a lot of time in here, ostensibly working on designs and proposals, though now I had to wonder how much of that time was actually spent on architecture and how much was spent on whatever else he'd been doing. Elena and I climbed the stairs, and I pushed open the door to the office. Everything was neat and organized. Marcus was meticulous about his workspace, with his laptop closed on the desk and stacks of architectural drawings carefully filed in their proper places. Start with the obvious, Elena suggested. Bank statements, credit cards. I sat down at Marcus's desk and opened his laptop. It required a password, but I knew it. We'd never hidden our passwords from each other. Another small trust that had been exploited. The laptop hummed to life, and I navigated to our bank's website, logging into our joint account. Elena peered over my shoulder as I started scrolling through the transaction history. At first, nothing looked unusual. Groceries, gas, utilities, the usual household expenses. But then I started looking more carefully at the dates and locations, and patterns began to emerge. There were regular charges at high-end restaurants, not just Bellinate, but half a dozen other expensive places around the city. Charges that always appeared on nights when Marcus had told me he was working late or meeting with clients. There were charges at a jewelry store in Beverly Hills. Multiple charges over the past 6 months, totaling several $1,000s. There were charges at a wine shop, a gourmet grocery store, a florist. And then there were the bigger charges. $5,000 to a furniture store 3 months ago. $2,500 to a home goods boutique. Regular payments, $3, $200 a month, to something called WA Properties LLC. What's WA Properties? Elena asked, pointing at the screen. I don't know, I said, but my stomach was sinking. But I'm going to find out. I opened a new browser tab and searched for WA Properties LLC Los Angeles. The search brought up a property management company that specialized in residential rentals in West Los Angeles. West Adams. Oh God. He's been paying rent on that house, I said, my voice hollow. For at least, let me check. I scrolled back through the bank statements, looking for the first appearance of the WA Properties charge. For 8 months. He's been paying rent on that house for 8 months. Jesus, Elena breathed. That's not a fling, Jess. That's a whole other life. I kept scrolling, kept searching, kept finding evidence of Marcus's betrayal in every transaction. He'd been systematically spending our money I'd earned too, money that was supposed to go toward our future, toward the family we'd been planning, on another woman and another life. The credit card statements were even worse. There were charges at Victoria's Secret and Agent Provocateur. Charges at day spas and salons. Charges at shops and boutiques that I'd never been to, for gifts that had never been given to me. Print everything, Elena said. Every statement, every charge. You're going to need it. I was already doing it, sending page after page to the printer in the corner of the office. The machine whirred to life, churning out evidence of Marcus's affair in black and white. While the printer worked, I started going through his desk drawers. The top drawer held the usual office supplies, pens, paperclips, sticky notes. The second drawer had files related to his work projects. But the bottom drawer, the one with a small lock that I'd never seen closed, caught my attention. I tried to open it. Locked. Where would he keep the key? Elena asked. I thought about it. Marcus wasn't particularly creative about these things. He'd probably hidden it somewhere close by, somewhere he could access easily but wouldn't be obvious. I felt along the underside of the desk. Nothing. I checked the pencil holder, the bookshelf, the inside of a desk lamp. Nothing. Then I noticed a small ceramic bowl on his desk, the kind that held loose change and odds and ends. I dumped it out, and there, among the pennies and paperclips, was a small brass key. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the bottom drawer. Inside was a folder. Just one folder, but it was thick with papers. I pulled it out and opened it, and my breath caught in my throat. The first thing I saw was a printed photo. Marcus and the woman from the restaurant, obviously taken on a trip somewhere tropical. They were on a beach, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. Happy. In love. There were more photos underneath. Dozens of them. Marcus and this woman at restaurants, at concerts, at what looked like a friend's wedding. Marcus and this woman hiking, cooking together, celebrating what might have been her birthday with a cake and candles. Marcus and this woman living an entire life that I'd known nothing about. Oh, Jess, Elena said softly, looking at the photos over my shoulder. I'm so sorry. But I wasn't done yet. Underneath the photos were documents. A copy of a lease agreement for the house in West Adams, listing Marcus Chen and Destiny Williams as co-tenants. Utility bills in both their names. And then, at the bottom of the pile, something that made my heart stop completely. A brochure for a jewelry store, with a page folded down and a ring circled in red ink. An engagement ring, with a price tag that made my eyes water. He's going to propose to her, I said, my voice coming out as barely more than a whisper. He's going to ask her to marry him. But he's already married, Elena said. To you. Apparently that's a problem he's planning to solve, I said, noticing a business card paper-clipped to the jewelry brochure. It was from a divorce attorney. And written on the back, in Marcus's handwriting, was a note, consult January 15th. Get papers ready. January 15th. That was less than a month away. He'd been planning this. All of it. He was going to divorce me, marry her, and continue living the life he'd already been building with her for the better part of a year. And judging by the timeline, he'd been planning to wait until after the holidays to tell me. One last Christmas together, pretending everything was fine, before dropping the bomb that would destroy my life. How considerate of him. That bastard, Elena said, her voice shaking with rage. That absolute bastard. He's been planning this whole thing, stringing you along, spending your money on her, and he was just going to... What? Serve you divorce papers and ride off into the sunset. I couldn't respond. I was staring at that business card, at Marcus's handwriting, at the concrete proof that my marriage wasn't just dying, it was already dead. He'd already killed it. He'd just been waiting for the right moment to tell me. The printer finished churning out the last page, and Elena gathered up all the papers, organizing them into a neat stack. We need to photograph all of this too, she said, pulling out her phone. The photos, the documents, everything. Just in case he realizes you found it and tries to hide it. She was thinking clearly, which was good, because I felt like I was underwater. Everything seemed muffled and distant and unreal. This couldn't be my life. This couldn't be happening to me. But it was. The evidence was right there in my hands. Elena methodically photographed every piece of evidence we'd found, uploading the photos to a cloud storage account as she went. Just in case, she kept saying. Just in case. When we were done, I carefully put everything back exactly the way we'd found it, locked the drawer, and returned the key to the ceramic bowl. Marcus couldn't know that I knew. Not yet. Not until I'd figured out my next move. We went back downstairs to the living room, and I checked the phone tracking app again. Marcus was still at the house in West Adams. Still with her. Still living his other life. What time is it? I asked. 11:30, Elena said. He'll probably be home soon, I said dully. Probably text me that he's leaving his mom's around midnight, Show up here around 12:30, act like everything's normal. What are you going to do when he gets here? Nothing, I said. I'm going to act normal. I'm going to pretend I don't know anything. Jess. I need time, I interrupted. Time to process this, time to make a plan, time to figure out the best way to protect myself. If I confront him tonight, I'll be operating from pure emotion, and he'll be able to manipulate the situation. But if I wait, if I'm strategic about this... Okay, Elena said slowly. I get it. But are you sure you can pull it off? Acting normal when you know what you know. I'm going to have to, I said. I've been playing the role of the oblivious wife for months without even knowing it. I think I can manage a few more days. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Marcus, leaving Mom's now. She sends her love. Should be home in about 45 minutes. XO. I stared at the message, at the casual lie, at the XO that now felt like mockery. 45 minutes. That's how long it took to drive from the house in West Adams to our home in Hancock Park. He'd probably done this drive dozens of times, perfecting his timing, making sure his lies lined up. Me, drive safe. See you soon. I typed it automatically, the kind of message I'd sent him 100 times before. Normal. Supportive. Loving. It made me feel sick. I should go, Elena said. Before he gets back. Are you sure you're okay? I can stay if you need me to. No, I said, standing up to walk her to the door. I need to do this part on my own. But thank you. For everything. For being there, for helping me, for not telling me I'm crazy. Elena hugged me tightly. You're not crazy. You're one of the strongest people I know, and you're going to get through this. And whatever you need, middle-of-the-night phone calls, someone to help you move out, a character witness in the divorce proceedings, whatever, I'm here. Always. I love you, I said, and I meant it. In a night when everything else had fallen apart, Elena had been my rock. Love you too, she said. Call me tomorrow, okay? Let me know you're all right. I promised I would, and then she was gone, and I was alone in my house, waiting for my husband to come home from his other life and lie to my face. I used the 45 minutes to compose myself. I splashed cold water on my face, fixed my makeup, changed into pajamas, my usual routine for a quiet night at home. I made myself a cup of tea and settled onto the couch with a book, staging the scene of domestic tranquility. When I heard Marcus's key in the lock, I took a deep breath and prepared myself. The door opened, and there he was. My husband. The man I'd promised to love and cherish for the rest of my life. The man who was currently leading a double life and planning to leave me for another woman. Hey, honey, he said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door, the same bowl where he kept the key to his secret drawer, I thought with bitter irony. Sorry I'm so late. You know how Mom gets when she wants to talk. He came over to the couch and kissed me on the forehead, and I had to fight every instinct not to flinch away. His lips felt like poison. How was dinner? I asked, keeping my voice light and casual. Oh, you know, the usual. She made pot roast and spent half the evening telling me about her neighbor's cat. Riveting stuff. He smiled at me, that charming smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it just made me want to scream. Sounds like a fun evening, I said. Not as fun as whatever you and Elena got up to, he said, settling onto the couch next to me. Where did you guys end up going? This was a test, I realized. He wanted to know if I'd been anywhere near Bellinate, if there was any chance I'd seen him. Just that little Italian place near Elena's apartment, I lied smoothly. Nothing fancy. We mostly just caught up on gossip. Nice, Marcus said, and I saw the tension leave his shoulders. He thought he was safe. He thought he'd gotten away with it. Again. We sat there for a few minutes, watching some mindless TV show, playing at being a normal married couple. Marcus's phone buzzed several times, and each time he checked it, angling the screen away from me. Part 2. The Investigation. I barely slept that night. Marcus fell asleep within minutes of climbing into bed. Apparently maintaining an elaborate double life wasn't stressful enough to cause insomnia, but I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with plans and questions and barely suppressed rage. Every time he shifted in his sleep or murmured something incomprehensible, I tensed. Part of me wanted to wake him up, to shake him and demand answers, to make him explain how he could do this to me, to us, to our marriage. But I stayed still and silent, playing the long game. When morning finally came, Marcus followed his usual routine with clockwork precision. Shower at 6:30, coffee and toast at 7 o'clock, out the door by 7:45 for his commute to the office. He kissed me goodbye, another poison kiss, and reminded me that he had a late meeting tonight so I shouldn't wait up. Another lie, probably. Another night with destiny. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I was up and moving. I had a plan, but I needed help to execute it. I called my office and told my assistant I'd be working from home for the next few days, cleared my schedule of anything non-urgent, and then I called in the cavalry. First call, Elena, who picked up on the first ring. "How are you?" she asked immediately. "Did you make it through the night okay?" "Barely," I admitted. "But I need your help. I'm going to need time off work to handle this, and I need someone I can trust to help me dig into the details." "I already told my boss I'm taking personal days," Elena said. "I'm here for whatever you need." "What's the plan?" "First, I need to know everything about Destiny Williams," I said, her name bitter on my tongue. "Who she is, where she works, how they met." "Everything." "I'm on it," Elena said. "What else?" "I need to document everything. Every time Marcus lies about where he is, I need proof of where he actually is. I need to build an airtight case so that when I do confront him, he can't talk his way out of it." "What about a PI?" Elena suggested. "Wouldn't that be easier?" "Eventually, maybe," I said. "But I want to do the initial legwork myself. I need to understand the full scope of what's been happening before I bring anyone else in." "Okay," Elena said. "Give me an hour, and I'll come over. We'll make a plan of attack." Second call, my lawyer. Not a divorce attorney, not yet, but Rachel Kim, a colleague from my firm who specialized in family law. We'd worked together on several cases, and I trusted her judgment. "Jessica, hi," Rachel said when she answered. "What can I do for you?" "I need advice," I said. "Off the record, attorney-client privilege, completely confidential." "Of course," Rachel said, her tone immediately shifting to professional concern. "What's going on?" I gave her the abbreviated version. Husband having an affair, planning to divorce me, spending marital assets on his other life. I needed to know what steps I should take to protect myself. Rachel listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "First things first, document everything. Every piece of evidence you can find. Financial records, communications, photographs. California is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair itself won't affect the divorce settlement, but the financial infidelity might." "Financial infidelity?" "If he's been spending marital assets on this other woman, and from what you're describing, he has, that could be considered dissipation of assets. You might be able to recoup some of that money in the settlement." That was something, at least. A small silver lining in this nightmare. "What else?" I asked. "Don't move any money or assets yet," Rachel warned. "Don't empty bank accounts or do anything that could be construed as retaliatory. Keep everything exactly as it is for now. But do make sure you have access to all financial records, bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds, everything. Make copies of everything." "Already started that," I said. "Good. Also, think about whether you want to try to save the marriage or if you're ready to end it. I know that's a huge question, and you probably don't have an answer yet, but it's important to be clear about what you want before you make any moves." Did I want to save my marriage? 24 hours ago, the answer would have been yes without hesitation. But now, after everything I'd learned, after seeing Marcus with Destiny, after finding that engagement ring brochure, "I don't think the marriage is salvageable," I said quietly. "He's not having a fling, Rachel. He's been building an entire life with this woman. He's planning to propose to her. He's already got a divorce attorney lined up. This isn't something we can come back from." "Okay," Rachel said gently. "Then you need to start thinking about what you want from the divorce. Fair division of assets, obviously, but also think about the house, any joint debts, retirement accounts. And you need to start thinking about whether you want to file first. Why would that matter? It gives you control of the process, Rachel explained. You choose the timing, you choose how it's presented. And psychologically, it puts you in a position of strength rather than being the one who gets blindsided. The one who gets blindsided. That was me, wasn't it? Except I'd already been blindsided. Now I was just deciding how to respond. I'll think about it, I said. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate the advice. Any time, she said. And Jessica, I'm sorry you're going through this. If you need recommendations for a good divorce attorney when you're ready to move forward, I can help with that too. We hung up, and I sat for a moment, absorbing everything. Then I got to work. Elena arrived exactly an hour later, armed with her laptop, a legal pad, and a bag of bagels. Fuel, she explained, dumping the bag on the kitchen counter. We're going to need it. We set up Command Central at my dining room table, spreading out all the documents we'd printed the night before and creating a timeline of Marcus's affair based on the financial records. The first unusual charge was in March, I said, pointing to a dinner receipt from 9 months ago. That's about when things started getting weird between us. Okay, so that's our starting point, Elena said, making a note. Now let's see if we can figure out who Destiny Williams is. She opened her laptop and started typing. Within minutes, she'd found Destiny's LinkedIn profile. Here, Elena said, turning the screen toward me. I looked at the profile photo, the same stunning woman from the restaurant, now in professional attire, smiling confidently at the camera. According to her profile, Destiny Williams was a senior interior designer at a prestigious firm downtown. She'd graduated from USC with a degree in architecture and had been working in the industry for 6 years. Wait, I said, a horrible realization dawning. She's a designer. Marcus is an architect. They probably met through work. Let me check, Elena said, clicking through to Destiny's portfolio. Okay, so she's worked on a bunch of high-end residential projects, but also... Oh no. What? She worked on the Meridian Tower project last year. That's one of your husband's projects, isn't it? It was. The Meridian Tower had been Marcus's big success story last year, a luxury high-rise that had won several industry awards. He'd been so proud of it, had spent months working on every detail. And apparently, he'd been working closely with Destiny Williams the entire time. They met on the job, I said. This whole thing started when they were working together on Meridian. It made a sick kind of sense. Long hours working closely together, the thrill of a successful project, the natural chemistry that came from collaborating on something creative. It was a classic setup for an affair. Keep looking, I said. I need to know everything about her. Elena dug deeper, finding Destiny's Instagram account, her Pinterest boards, her Twitter. She was active on social media, frequently posting about her design work, her friends, her life. And increasingly, over the past several months, there were posts that obviously included Marcus, even if she'd been careful not to tag him or use his name. A photo of a perfectly plated brunch with the caption, "Sundays are for sleeping in and good food with better company." 2 wine glasses in the background, one with lipstick marks, one without. A picture of a hiking trail with the caption, "Best views are earned with the best person." A man's hand visible at the edge of the frame, wearing a watch I recognized as Marcus's. A shot of a sunset from what I now recognized as the porch of the West Adams house, captioned, "Home is where the heart is." She was documenting their relationship, sharing it with her friends and followers, just being discreet enough that anyone who didn't know Marcus wouldn't make the connection. She has no idea he's married, Elena said suddenly. Look at this, she's posting like someone in a normal, happy relationship. If she knew he had a wife at home, would she be this open about it? I looked at the posts again, and Elena was right. There was no guilt in these posts, no secrecy, no signs of someone who knew they were the other woman. Destiny was posting like someone who was in a committed relationship with someone who was free to be with her. You think he lied to her too? I asked. I think he's lying to everyone, Elena said. It's the only way this works. He tells you he's working late or at his mom's, and he tells her, what? That he's traveling for work? That he has a place of his own? Something that explains why he can't be with her every night. She pulled up the lease agreement for the West Adams house on her phone, the copy we'd photographed last night. Look, the lease started 8 months ago, but it's only for a 2-bedroom house. If they were really living together full-time, wouldn't they need more space? This seems like a part-time situation. So he's been splitting his time, I said slowly, working it out. Some nights with me, some nights with her, always with an excuse for why he can't be wherever he's not. And both of you just accepted it because you trusted him, Elena finished. God, he's been playing both of you. That should have made me feel better, the idea that I wasn't the only victim here, that Destiny was being deceived too. But it didn't. It just made me angrier. Marcus had constructed this elaborate lie, had managed to maintain it for months, had been planning to blow up both our lives when he finally decided to choose between us. Or maybe he'd already chosen. Maybe that engagement ring brochure meant he'd made his decision, and he was just waiting for the right time to tell me. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Marcus, crazy morning, back-to-back meetings. Might grab lunch at my desk. Hope you're having a better day than me. Love you. I showed the text to Elena, who checked the phone tracking app on my phone. He's at the office, she confirmed. At least that's the truth. For now, I said. But the day's not over yet. We spent the rest of the morning building our case. Elena created a detailed timeline of Marcus's movements based on the financial records, cross-referencing dates with his calendar and the excuses he'd given me. A pattern emerged quickly. Roughly 3 nights a week, Marcus was working late, or meeting with clients, or at his mother's. On those nights, his spending showed up at restaurants, stores, or services in or near West Adams. The nights he was actually home with me, his spending was minimal. Gas, maybe a quick coffee on the way to work. It was like he had 2 completely separate financial lives, just like he had 2 completely separate romantic lives. We need more than financial records, I said, looking at our timeline. We need proof that he's actually with her. Photos, videos, something definitive. That's where a PI would come in handy, Elena pointed out. They have the equipment and expertise to do surveillance properly. She was right, but I wasn't ready to bring in a stranger yet. This felt too personal, too raw. I needed to do this myself for just a little longer. Tonight, I said. He said he has a late meeting. I'm going to follow him. Jess, is that safe? What if he sees you? He won't, I said. He's not looking for me. He thinks I'm at home, trusting him, believing every lie he tells. He won't be watching his back. Elena looked doubtful but didn't argue. Fine. But I'm coming with you. No way you're doing this alone. That evening, I prepared carefully. I changed into dark, nondescript clothes, black jeans, a black sweater, nothing that would stand out. I borrowed a baseball cap from the closet and pulled my hair into a low ponytail. Elena came over an hour before Marcus was due to leave, and we went over the plan. We'll take my car, Elena said. He doesn't know it as well as yours. And we'll stay way back, no risks. Agreed, I said. And we're just observing tonight. No confrontations, no getting too close. I just need to see where he goes and confirm that he's with her. Marcus came home around 6:30, right on schedule. He changed out of his work clothes into something more casual. Nice jeans and a button-down shirt that I'd bought him for Christmas last year. The irony wasn't lost on me. I won't be too late, he said, kissing me goodbye. Probably home by 10. What's the meeting about? I asked casually. Oh, just a presentation review for the new Civic Center project, he said smoothly. Pretty boring stuff. You'll probably be asleep by the time I get back. Lies, all lies. But I smiled and told him to drive safely, and then watched him leave. Elena and I waited 5 minutes, then headed out to her car. I pulled up the tracking app, found Marcus's location, and we were off. He wasn't going to his office. Of course he wasn't. He was heading west, toward Destiny's house. We followed at a careful distance, always keeping several cars between us and his BMW. 25 minutes later, Marcus pulled into the driveway of the West Adams house. We parked down the street, far enough away that we wouldn't be noticed but close enough to see clearly. Marcus got out of his car, and the front door opened before he even reached the porch. Destiny came out, wearing a sundress and a bright smile, and threw her arms around him. They kissed, long and deep, right there in the fading daylight for anyone to see. Then they went inside together, hand in hand, and the door closed behind them. "Got it," Elena said, holding up her phone. She'd been recording the whole thing. "That's pretty damning evidence." I felt numb. Seeing them together on video, having proof that couldn't be denied or explained away, should have felt like a victory. Instead, it just felt sad. This was my life now. Sitting in a car in a strange neighborhood, spying on my husband while he lived another life with another woman. This was what my marriage had become. We waited for another hour, documenting when lights turned on in different rooms, noting what time they closed the curtains in what was obviously the bedroom. At 9 p.m., I'd had enough. "Let's go," I said. "I've seen enough." Elena drove me home in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. When we pulled up to my house, she turned to me and said, "You know you're going to have to confront him eventually, right? You can't keep up this act forever." "I know," I said. "But not yet. I need just a little more time to make sure I have everything I need. Once I confront him, there's no going back. Everything changes. And I need to be ready for that." "Okay," Elena said. "But promise me you'll talk to a divorce lawyer this week. You need to start protecting yourself legally." "I promise," I said, and I meant it. Marcus came home at 10:15 p.m., just a little later than he'd promised, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. He climbed into bed beside me, probably thinking I was asleep, and within minutes was snoring softly. I lay awake, planning my next move. The following morning, I made 2 important phone calls. The first was to David Morrison, a divorce attorney Rachel had recommended. His secretary squeezed me in for a consultation that afternoon. The second call was to a private investigator named Angela Torres. Rachel had recommended her too, describing her as thorough, discreet, and excellent at gathering evidence for divorce cases. "Mrs. Chen," Angela said when I called, "Rachel Kim mentioned you might be reaching out. What can I do for you?" I gave her the basics. Husband having an affair, needs surveillance and documentation, want to ensure I have everything I need for a strong divorce case. "I can help you with that," Angela said. "But I'll need some information from you first. When can we meet?" We arranged to meet at her office the next morning. I'd give her everything I'd gathered so far, and she'd take it from there. Professional eyes on the situation, professional documentation of Marcus's betrayal. My consultation with David Morrison was eye-opening. He was in his 50s, with graying hair and kind eyes that had probably seen hundreds of cases like mine. He listened carefully as I explained the situation, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. "You're in a relatively good position," he said when I finished. "You've documented extensively, which is excellent. And the fact that he's been spending marital assets on this other relationship is something we can definitely use." "Rachel mentioned dissipation of assets," I said. "Can you explain what that means in practice?" "Certainly. In California, all assets acquired during the marriage are community property. They belong equally to both spouses. If one spouse spends community property on an extramarital affair, that can be considered dissipation or waste of community assets. We can potentially recover up to half of what was spent." "He spent thousands," I said. "Maybe tens of thousands when you add it all up. Rent on that house, gifts, dinners, jewelry." "Then we'll add it up and document every penny," David said. "When it comes time to divide assets, we'll make sure you're compensated for his misconduct." We talked through the rest of the details: property division, how long the divorce process might take, what my financial situation would look like after the split. It was all very practical and businesslike, which somehow made it feel more real. This wasn't just emotional pain anymore. This was a legal process with forms to file and procedures to follow. "One more thing," David said as I was getting ready to leave. "Have you thought about when and how you want to tell him that you know?" "Not yet," I admitted. "Think about it carefully," he advised. "Because once you tell him, he'll lawyer up, and the dynamics change completely. Make sure you're ready for that before you pull the trigger." I left his office with a folder full of paperwork to review and sign, my head spinning with legal terminology and financial calculations. This was really happening. I was really getting divorced. That night, Marcus actually was working late, or at least, the tracking app showed him at his office until 9 p.m. When he came home, he looked genuinely exhausted, and I felt a brief flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the video Elena had taken of him kissing Destiny, and the feeling evaporated. "Rough day?" I asked as he collapsed onto the couch. "You have no idea," he said. "The Civic Center project is turning into a nightmare. The client keeps changing their mind about basic design elements, and we're supposed to break ground in 3 months. It's insane." He talked for a while about the project, about the pressures and deadlines and difficult clients. It was the most we'd talked in weeks, maybe months. And the whole time, I kept thinking, this is what our marriage has become. We can talk about his work stress, but we can't talk about anything real. We can't talk about us. Or maybe the problem was that there was no us anymore. Maybe there hadn't been for a long time, and I'd just been too blind to see it. "You seem distracted," Marcus said, looking at me with what almost seemed like genuine concern. "Everything okay?" The question was so absurd that I almost laughed. Everything was not okay. Everything was spectacularly, catastrophically not okay. But he didn't know that I knew, so I just smiled and said, "Just tired. Work's been crazy too." He accepted that without question, because why wouldn't he? I'd accepted his excuses and lies for months. Turnabout was fair play. The next morning, I met with Angela Torres at her office in Culver City. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an all-business demeanor that I appreciated. I handed over copies of everything I'd gathered, the financial records, the lease agreement, the photos from Marcus's office, the video Elena had taken. Angela reviewed it all methodically, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "This is good," she said finally. "Very thorough. You've done a lot of my job for me already." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I fill in the gaps," Angela explained. "I'll conduct surveillance over the next week or two, document his movements, get clear photographic evidence of the affair. I'll also do some background research on Destiny Williams, make sure there aren't any other surprises lurking." "Other surprises?" "You'd be amazed what people hide," Angela said. "Maybe she's married too. Maybe there's a financial connection between them beyond the rent payments. Maybe there are other women. I've seen it all, Mrs. Chen. Better to know everything now than be surprised later." The thought that there might be even more to this story made me feel sick, but she was right. I needed to know everything. "How long will the investigation take?" I asked. 2 weeks should do it," Angela said. "I'll give you a full report with photographs, video, and a detailed timeline. Everything you need for your divorce attorney." 2 weeks. I could maintain the charade for 2 more weeks. I could smile and play the oblivious wife while Angela gathered evidence and David Morrison prepared my case. And then I could finally confront Marcus with the truth and start putting the pieces of my shattered life back together. The next 2 weeks were surreal. I went through the motions of my normal life, going to work, having dinner with Marcus, responding to his texts and phone calls, all while knowing that investigators were documenting his every move. It was like living in 2 realities simultaneously. Marcus, for his part, seemed to have no idea that anything was wrong. He followed his usual pattern, 3 or 4 nights a week at work or his mother's, all nights that Angela's surveillance confirmed he was actually at the West Adams house with Destiny, and the rest of the time at home with me, acting like a normal husband. A few nights he even tried to initiate sex, which I managed to deflect with excuses about being tired or not feeling well. The thought of being intimate with him now, knowing what I knew, made my skin crawl. Angela sent me daily updates, usually just a text confirming Marcus's location and activities. But 1 week into the surveillance, she sent me a message that made my heart stop. "Angela, need to meet. Found something. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" I made up an excuse about a dentist appointment and met Angela the next day. She had her laptop open and several folders spread across her desk. "What did you find?" I asked, sitting down. "First, the routine stuff," Angela said, pulling up a folder of photographs. "I've documented your husband meeting Destiny Williams at the West Adams property on 6 separate occasions over the past week. They're clearly cohabiting on his nights there. Here's photographic evidence of them grocery shopping together, going to the gym together, having dinner at various restaurants. All the usual couple activities. She showed me the photos, each one a tiny knife to the heart. Marcus and Destiny loading groceries into his car. Marcus and Destiny laughing together on a walk. Marcus and Destiny holding hands at a wine bar. "But that's not what I needed to show you," Angela continued, her expression serious. "This is." She pulled up a different folder, this one full of screenshots from what looked like social media and public records. "I did the background check on Destiny Williams like I said I would. Most of it was clean, no criminal record, solid employment history, good credit. But then I found this." She showed me a marriage license from 3 years ago. Destiny Williams and Jason Montgomery, married in Las Vegas. "She's married," I said, shocked. "Was married," Angela corrected. "The divorce was finalized 8 months ago. The interesting thing is the timing. 8 months ago. Right when Marcus had signed the lease on the West Adams house. So she was going through a divorce when she and Marcus started this thing," I said slowly. "It gets more interesting," Angela said. "I did some digging into the divorce proceedings. They're public record in Nevada. The grounds for divorce were adultery, Jason Montgomery's adultery, not hers. He cheated, she found out, she filed for divorce. According to the court documents, she got a pretty favorable settlement because of it." "So she was the wronged party," I said. "She knows what it's like to be cheated on." "Which means," Angela said, "she has no idea your husband is married. Think about it, she just went through a painful divorce because her husband cheated. There's no way she'd knowingly become the other woman after that experience. He's lying to her too." I sat back in my chair, processing this information. "What do you think he told her?" Based on the pattern of his visits and the fact that they only have a 2-bedroom place, I'd guess he told her he's divorced or separated. Maybe said he has his own place for work reasons, or that he travels a lot. Something to explain why he can't be with her every night. "How has he managed to keep up this lie?" I asked. "She's on social media, she posts about their relationship. Wouldn't someone eventually see it and tell her he's married?" "She's careful," Angela said, clicking through Destiny's Instagram again. "She never uses his name, never tags him, keeps his face out of most photos. And from what I can tell, their social circles don't overlap much. Different friend groups, different professional networks. It's actually not that hard to keep 2 lives separate if you're strategic about it." And Marcus had always been strategic. That was one of the things that made him such a good architect. His ability to plan complex projects, anticipate problems, design solutions. He'd applied those same skills to designing his double life. "There's one more thing," Angela said. "I followed your husband last night. He didn't go to the West Adams house." "Where did he go?" She pulled up a photo on her laptop. Marcus, standing outside a jewelry store in Beverly Hills. The same store where he'd purchased several items over the past months, according to our credit card records. I couldn't see what he was doing inside, but based on the length of his visit and the fact that you found that engagement ring brochure in his office, I'd say he was probably picking up a ring. An engagement ring. For Destiny. While still married to me. "When do you think he's planning to propose?" I asked, my voice hollow. No way to know for sure, but if I had to guess? Soon. Maybe Christmas, maybe New Year's. Big romantic moment, perfect timing. Christmas was 3 days away. "I need all of this documented," I said. "Everything you found, all the photos, all the background information. I need it all." "I'll have a complete report ready for you by tomorrow," Angela promised. "But Mrs. Chen, I have to ask, what are you planning to do? Because if he's planning to propose to her soon, your window for controlling the narrative is closing." She was right. If Marcus proposed to Destiny and she accepted, I'd no longer be able to handle this privately. Destiny would find out about me, there would be drama and confrontation and probably public humiliation for everyone involved. But if I confronted Marcus first, before he could propose, I could at least maintain some dignity. I could be the one to end the marriage, not the wife who got dumped for another woman. "I'm going to tell him I know," I said. "Soon. After Christmas, I think. One last holiday, and then I'm blowing up his whole world." "Do you want to tell her too?" Angela asked. Destiny Williams? She has a right to know she's being lied to. Did she have a right to know? Maybe. But that felt like Marcus's responsibility, not mine. He'd created this mess. He should have to deal with the consequences. I'll think about it, I said. But for now, just finish the report. I need everything documented before I make any moves. I left Angela's office with my head spinning. The investigation had turned up even more than I'd expected, and now I had decisions to make. Big decisions that would affect not just my life, but Destiny's life too. Part of me felt sorry for her. She was a victim in this too, just like me. Marcus had lied to both of us, manipulated both of us, used both of us. But another part of me couldn't quite muster sympathy. She was sleeping with my husband, living in the house he was paying for with our money, wearing jewelry he'd bought with our credit cards. Victim or not, she was still the other woman. That night at dinner, Marcus was in an unusually good mood. He'd brought home expensive wine and had made reservations at my favorite restaurant for Christmas Eve. I thought we could do something special this year, he said, smiling at me across the table. Just the two of us. What do you say? Just the two of us. He wanted to have one last romantic Christmas with me before he proposed to his girlfriend and asked for a divorce. The audacity was breathtaking. That sounds nice, I lied, sipping my wine. You've seemed stressed lately, Marcus continued. I thought maybe we should reconnect, spend some quality time together. I feel like we've both been so busy that we've let things slide between us. We've let things slide. As if it were a mutual problem, a natural drift that just happened. Not the result of him spending half his time with another woman. Maybe you're right, I said, playing along. It would be nice to reconnect. Marcus reached across the table and took my hand, looking into my eyes with what seemed like genuine affection. I love you, Jess. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. You're important to me. The lies were so smooth, so practiced. He'd probably said similar things to Destiny just last night. He was a man who lived in the moment, saying whatever his current audience needed to hear, and somehow managing to sound sincere every time. I love you too, I said, because what else could I say? I wasn't ready to blow everything up yet. Not quite yet.